good friend Joe Derrick co-wrote the script, and a new friend, Baltazar Cormacher, co-produced. Friends and Companions, telling a story of friendship and companionship. The film is an adaptation of Mikkelsen's remarkable book, and we have done all within our powers to do it justice. The film is titled simply Against the Ice, and the publisher of the volume you are reading now chose to shorten the book's title in recognition of our effort. My hope is that the film will serve as a good companion to the book. If you watch the film on Netflix, I hope it will give you a sense of the preposterous beauty of Greenland, the unfathomable power of nature, and the fundamental human need for companionship. Enjoy. Nikolaj Coster-Waldau, Copenhagen, October 2021. Chapter 1. The start of a Greenland expedition. An expedition is given up. Mylius-Erichsen perishes in the wilds. Lord Northcliffe's offer and its consequences. Gay departure. Ill omens. We put in to Angmaksalik. The lot of the out-of-work explorer is not a happy one. His head teems with plans for new travels, but, poor man, he usually lacks the essentials for putting them into effect, for he is broke, stony broke, and often worse than that. I, at least, seem always to have been left with a number of larger or smaller bills to meet at the end of my expeditions, without having any idea where the money was to come from. Of course, there are fees to be earned for articles and lectures, and once in a while a check for a book about one's latest expedition. But they make little difference to a large deficit. Also, you feel that having returned to a civilized country, after several years in the wilds, you are entitled to a period of ease and freedom from care. Every civilized country has its kind people who feel sorry for the poor explorer, with neither roots nor money, and hasten to tell him to be more sensible, and to adopt a staid, quiet, and profitable way of life, instead of wasting his time running about the wilds. There was no need for those kind persons to tell me that. It had been all too obvious for a number of years. But what are you to do when you have been born with eternal unrest in your body, and are drawn to none but those parts of the world that sensible people regard as fit only for fools? I made an honest attempt to be sensible and do as other young men did, but I was unable to suppress the restlessness within me. I became touchy and impatient, impossible to live with. I longed to be off again, away from the fretting ties of civilization, far in the north, where one could live life to the full, and be oneself. Such was my situation in the early summer of 1908, after returning home from a 2-year expedition to the seas north of Alaska, where I had sought an undiscovered land, whose existence and position had not only been worked out in theory, but which had been seen by a couple of ships' crews and by Alaskan Eskimos, or so they said. Unfortunately, the theorists were wrong in their calculations, and it is a mistake uncritically to accept everything people insist they have seen, for the land was not where it had been calculated to be. The discovery that it was not land, but an island of ice, was reserved for the foolish youth of the future, those who joyfully hazard their lives in high-flying airplanes and use the stars as mileposts across the endless vault of the heavens, from which the view is so vast that those enormous floating ice islands were at last discovered. Now they drift slowly with the current across the polar seas, carrying scientists and technicians with them. My outlook brightened one dark October day when an old storm-whipped steamship chugged into Copenhagen and anchored in the roads. She was Mylius-Erichsen's expedition ship Denmark, come home with great results from a 2 years' expedition to the then remote and unknown land of northeast Greenland. But the flag at the flagstaff aft was flying at half-mast, and the news soon spread that the great results obtained had cost 3 lives, including that of Mylius-Erichsen himself. The experienced explorer knew, of course, that his life was not worth so very much once he had left civilization and been swallowed up in the wilds, for, unlike our young successors with their aeroplanes and wireless, we of the older generation had to manage entirely on our own, without the least